Chosen one, pause for a moment and let this land. This is not background noise in your day. This is not something you stumbled upon by chance while scrolling, half present, half distracted. This moment is intentional. It is precise. It is a holy interruption, and it has found you exactly where you are because that is where it was meant to meet you. There are times when life flows quietly, and there are times when heaven interrupts the flow on purpose. This is one of those times. What you are experiencing right now is not random alignment of words and emotions. It is divine timing, pressing gently but firmly against your awareness, asking you to listen with more than your ears. Chosen one, you have felt it already. The subtle pause in your spirit. The sense that something unseen is shifting, even if nothing visible is changed yet. That feeling did not come from nowhere. It is not anxiety. It is not imagination. It is not wishful thinking trying to soothe disappointment. It is recognition. It is your inner world responding to movement that began before you were conscious of it. Long before you had language for it, something was already being set in motion on your behalf. This moment establishes something important. You are not here by accident. Your life is not unfolding randomly. Your current questions, your uncertainty, your restlessness, even your fatigue are not signs of failure or delay. They are signals. They are evidence that you are standing at the edge of transition. When God moves, He does not always announce Himself with noise or spectacle. Often, He creates a disruption in the ordinary, a pause in momentum, a moment where your attention is gently but unmistakably redirected. That is what this is, a holy interruption designed to realign you with what is already happening behind the scenes. You may have been telling yourself that nothing is happening yet, that things feel stalled, that progress has slowed or stopped altogether.
But what if that interpretation is incomplete? What if the stillness you are interpreting as delay is actually containment? What if the uncertainty you are experiencing is not compression, but compression? There are seasons when movement happens inward before it manifests outward. Seasons where foundations are reinforced, not so they can be admired, but so they can carry what is coming without collapse. Chosen one, God is not preparing to move in your life. He is moving now, not later, not when conditions look better, not when you feel more confident, not when everything makes sense. Right now. While you are questioning, while you are tired, while you are unsure, divine activity does not wait for human readiness. It creates readiness through motion. And the fact that you are sensing disruption rather than stagnation is the first sign that something is already underway. This is where the promise begins to clarify. You are not being left to navigate your future unsupported. You are not being asked to figure everything out on your own. Divine backing is active. Divine funding is in motion. Divine protection is engaged. That does not mean life will suddenly become effortless or free of challenge. It means that what you are stepping into is not dependent solely on your strength, your resources, or your ability to control outcomes. There is an authority greater than circumstance underwriting what comes next. When God backs something, it does not mean the absence of resistance. It means resistance no longer has final authority. It means delays cannot cancel purpose. It means opposition cannot outpace provision. It means even mistakes can be redirected instead of disqualifying you. Divine backing changes the rules of the game quietly, often before you realize the game itself has shifted. You may be standing in uncertainty right now, unsure of what decision to make, what direction to take, or whether you can trust what you feel. That uncertainty is not a flaw in your faith.
It is a sign that something is loosening. Old frameworks are breaking down. Old expectations are losing their grip. Certainties that once felt solid no longer fit. That can feel destabilizing.
but it is often the necessary precondition for expansion. God rarely pours new vision into old containers without first reshaping them. This message is not here to give you information you lack. It is here to confirm what your soul already senses, but may not fully trust yet. Deep down, beneath the noise of doubt and the habit of self-protection, you know something is changing. You know you are not meant to remain where you are, internally or externally. You know that the pressure you feel is not meant to crush you, but to move you. This is confirmation, not persuasion. It is not asking you to believe something foreign. It is naming something familiar. That is why skepticism feels out of place here. Skepticism is useful when something contradicts your inner truth. But when something resonates before you analyze it, when it settles instead of agitates, when it brings clarity rather than confusion, that is not manipulation. That is alignment. Divine messages do not need to convince the soul. They awaken it. They invite presence rather than argument. They ask you to pay attention, not to perform belief. So this is your invitation, not to force faith, not to suppress doubt, but to be present, to listen without rushing to conclusions, to allow the interruption to do its work. You do not need to fully understand what is unfolding to participate in it. You only need to stop resisting the pause. Stillness is not the enemy of progress when God is involved. Sometimes, stillness is where progress is negotiated at levels you cannot yet see. Chosen one, protection is already active around you. Some paths have closed, not because you were rejected, but because you were shielded. Some outcomes did not materialize, not because you were overlooked, but because they would have cost you more than they gave. Divine protection does not always feel kind in the moment. It can feel like disappointment, like confusion, like unanswered prayer. But protection is often recognized in hindsight, when you realize what you were spared from carrying. Funding, too, is not limited to finances. Provision shows up as clarity when you were overwhelmed, as peace when chaos was expected, as endurance when you thought you were empty. It shows up as ideas that arrive unforced, as connections that feel natural instead of strained, as timing that aligns without manipulation. Divine funding ensures that what you are called to do is supported at the level required for sustainability, not just survival. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing your window. What feels like waiting is often synchronization. There are elements that must align beyond your control, and forcing movement before alignment only creates damage that must later be repaired. God is more invested in longevity than speed. What is being built in your life is meant to last, not just impress. So if you have been feeling restless, unsure, unusually reflective, or quietly expectant without knowing why, consider this your explanation. The interruption you are experiencing is holy. It is meant to wake you up to the fact that you are not drifting. You are being guided. Even when the path ahead is not fully visible, the ground beneath you is secure. This moment is asking for your attention, not your anxiety, your faith, not your fear, your presence, not your perfection. Let go of the need to label everything immediately. Let go of the urge to control the outcome before it arrives. Trust that what is unfolding does not require your panic to succeed. Chosen one, this is confirmation. Not of every detail, not of every timeline, but of this truth. You are supported. You are seen. You are backed. And what is moving in your life right now is not accidental. It is intentional, protected, and already in motion. Chosen one, understand this clearly and let it settle deeper than surface-level comfort.
God is not standing still, weighing options or debating whether now is the right moment to move in your life. He is already moving. Action has already begun. Decisions have already been made. Shifts are already underway, even if your physical environment has not caught up yet. What you are experiencing is not the absence of movement, but the delay between cause and effect, between the unseen and the seen. Heaven does not operate on hesitation the way humans do. When God initiates movement, it happens first in realms you cannot measure with your senses, and only later does it translate into visible outcomes. Behind the scenes, outcomes are being rearranged. Timelines are being adjusted with precision you could not plan on your own. Resources you thought were unavailable are being redirected. People are being repositioned. Circumstances are being softened or removed entirely before you ever have to confront them. What looks like nothing happening is often everything happening, quietly. You are not waiting on God to decide. You are waiting on reality to catch up with what has already been decided. Some doors that appeared permanently closed were never locked against you. They were paused. Some opportunities you mourned as lost were not denied, only delayed for alignment. Some endings you interpreted as rejection were actually redirection, steering you away from paths that would have limited your future capacity. God does not erase purpose because of time. He rewrites timing to protect purpose. What looked like a no was often a not yet, and what felt like silence was often restructuring. There are narratives you told yourself to survive disappointment. You labeled seasons as failures so you could move forward without expecting too much.
You convinced yourself that certain things were over because it hurt less than holding hope. But now those narratives are being rewritten, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily. Quiet revisions are taking place. Your past is not being erased, but its meaning is being corrected. What once looked like evidence that you were forgotten is now being revealed as evidence that you were protected. The future you are stepping into is not fragile. It is not hanging by a thread, dependent on perfect decisions or flawless execution. It is secured, anchored, backed by intention that existed before your doubts formed. Fragile futures require constant anxiety, constant control, constant fear of loss. Secured futures allow you to breathe, even when you do not yet see the full picture. They allow you to move forward without panic because the foundation does not depend solely on you holding everything together. This is why the emphasis is on now, not someday, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances look ideal. Right now. Divine movement does not wait for emotional certainty. It creates certainty through movement. The shift you feel internally is not premature excitement. It is alignment catching up to action already in progress. You are sensing change because change has already begun. Hope that is distant feels like imagination. Hope that is immediate feels like grounding. That is the difference you are experiencing. This is not wishful thinking projecting a better future to escape the present. This is awareness adjusting to a reality that is already forming. The urgency you feel is not pressure. It is relevance. You are being asked to recognize that the season has shifted, even if the scenery has not. When God is already acting, your role is not to force outcomes, but to stay receptive, to avoid sabotaging peace with overanalysis, to resist the urge to rush ahead or fall back into resignation. Trust grows when you understand that timing is not slipping through your fingers. It is being handled with care beyond your visibility. So if you feel a strange mix of calm and anticipation, stability and expectancy, that is not contradiction. That is what security feels like before manifestation. You are standing in the overlap between promise and proof, and that space, while uncomfortable to the mind, is powerful for the spirit. Right now matters, because this is the moment awareness catches up to movement. Right now is when you stop treating your life as if it is on hold. Right now is when you stop bracing for loss and start preparing for continuity. You are not waiting for permission to hope. You are being informed that hope is already justified. Chosen one, God is not planning your future as a possibility. He is executing it as a certainty. And the more you release the belief that everything depends on your timing, the more clearly you will see how intentionally everything is being arranged in yours. Chosen one, if you've been feeling a strange inner stirring lately, something subtle yet persistent that you cannot fully explain, know that you are not alone in that experience. And more importantly, you are not imagining it. That quiet restlessness, the sense of anticipation without a clear reason, the feeling that something is about to shift even though your environment looks the same. These are not random emotional fluctuations. They are signals. They are responses to invisible preparation already taking place around you and within you. When God moves, He often awakens awareness before He changes circumstances. What you feel internally is your spirit registering a shift before your senses can confirm it. This stirring is not confusion. It is confirmation. Confusion drains clarity and leaves you anxious, scattered, and second-guessing yourself. What you are experiencing does the opposite. Even if it feels unfamiliar, it carries a strange calm with it. There is tension, yes, but it is not the tension of fear. It is the tension of expansion. It is the sensation of outgrowing a container that once felt adequate. Your intuition is becoming louder, not because you are unstable, but because the atmosphere is changing, and you are becoming more sensitive to it. Before anything changes on the outside, something always shifts on the inside. Spiritual climates change long before physical conditions do. Just as seasons transition gradually before they announce themselves fully, divine movement alters the atmosphere first. You may notice that your tolerance for certain environments, conversations, or habits has decreased. Things that once felt normal now feel heavy or out of place. This is not judgment, it is alignment. You are adjusting to a new frequency, one that cannot comfortably coexist with what no longer serves where you are being led. This is also why this message found you now, not earlier, not later, on schedule. Divine delivery does not operate on coincidence. There is precision in timing that often becomes clear only in retrospect. Had this message reached you in a previous season, it might have sounded like theory. Had it come later, it might have felt redundant. But now, it resonates because something in you is ready to receive it. That readiness was cultivated quietly, through experiences you did not choose and lessons you did not rush. Belief is being reactivated in you intentionally. Not blind belief, not forced optimism, but grounded trust. Trust that does not require constant reassurance. Trust that allows you to stay steady even when answers are incomplete. God does not reactivate belief by overwhelming you with evidence all at once. He does it by restoring your ability to sense truth again, to recognize resonance instead of chasing validation. You may notice that old fears are losing their grip, not disappearing entirely, but no longer controlling your decisions the way they used to. You may feel less desperate for certainty and more willing to move with partial clarity. That is not recklessness. That is maturity. Faith evolves when it no longer needs to be loud to be strong. The atmosphere around you is shifting in ways you cannot yet measure. Conversations are being influenced before they happen. Opportunities are being prepared before you are aware of them. Resistance is being softened in places you have not revisited yet. This is why patience feels different now. It no longer feels like waiting in emptiness, but like standing in readiness. So if you have been questioning why you feel different without a clear explanation, let this settle your mind. You are not losing stability. You are gaining alignment. The stirring you feel is not a disruption meant to unsettle you, but an activation meant to awaken you. This message is part of that process, arriving exactly when your inner world was prepared to recognize it. Chosen one. Belief is not returning by accident. It is being restored with intention. And as the atmosphere continues to shift, you will find that clarity arrives not through force, but through familiarity. The quiet recognition that you are exactly where you need to be as what is being prepared moves steadily toward you. Chosen one, let this go even deeper, because what is happening right now is not surface-level awareness. It is a recalibration of how you perceive reality itself. That inner stirring you feel is not loud, not dramatic, not something you can easily explain to others without sounding uncertain. And that is precisely why it is divine. God rarely shouts over chaos. He changes the frequency so chaos no longer dominates. You may notice that your reactions are shifting before your logic catches up. Things that once triggered anxiety now only register as information. Situations that once consumed your emotional energy now pass through you without attachment. This is not emotional numbness. It is spiritual grounding.
It is the byproduct of preparation happening at levels you are not consciously managing. Invisible preparation often feels uncomfortable because it removes familiar reference points. When the atmosphere changes before circumstances do, the mind searches for evidence to confirm what the spirit already knows. This gap can feel disorienting. You may find yourself asking, "Why do I feel calm when nothing has resolved yet?" Or, "Why am I no longer panicking about things that used to keep me awake at night?" The answer is not that you have lowered your standards or given up. The answer is that you are being stabilized for what comes next. God does not bring expansion into unstable interiors. He prepares the inner environment first, so the outer blessing does not become overwhelming. You are not imagining the repetition either. The same thoughts surfacing without force. The same ideas returning gently instead of obsessively. The same sense of direction nudging you without pressure. Imagination is chaotic and self-centered. It demands attention and reassurance. What you are experiencing is consistent, calm, and patient. It waits for you instead of chasing you. That is how confirmation behaves. It does not rush you into decisions. It anchors you so decisions can be made without fear. There is also a reason you may feel more aware of silence lately. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels informative. You are hearing things you could not hear before because internal noise has decreased. God often removes distractions not as punishment, but as preparation. When fewer things compete for your attention, discernment sharpens naturally. You begin to notice subtle shifts in energy, intention, and truth. This is not hyper-spiritualization. It is sensitivity returning after a long season of survival mode. Survival mode dulls intuition because its priority is immediate safety, not long-term alignment. You spent time there for a reason. It kept you moving when you could not afford to stop. But you are not meant to live there permanently. Now that the environment is changing, your system is standing down from constant defense. That is why belief feels different. It is no longer desperate or performative. It is quiet and steady. It does not need to announce itself. It simply exists. Divine delivery always arrives when internal readiness meets external alignment. This message did not arrive to convince you of something new. It arrived to meet something already forming inside you. Think about that. If this were imagination,
it would feel exciting but unstable. If this were denial, it would feel comforting but fragile. Instead, it feels grounding. It does not pull you away from reality. It helps you face it with more clarity. That is how you know this is not self-generated. Belief being reactivated does not mean you suddenly trust everything or everyone. It means you trust your ability to discern again. You trust that not every open door is for you, and not every closed door is against you. You trust that your timing does not have to match someone else's for it to be valid. You trust that peace is a better indicator than urgency. That shift alone changes how you move through life. You may notice that you are no longer chasing explanations for everything. You can sit with partial understanding without spiraling. That is not passivity. That is security. Secure belief does not demand immediate proof. It allows unfolding. It understands that not all clarity arrives at once, because not all clarity is meant to be acted on immediately. The spiritual atmosphere around you is adjusting to support a different version of you. One that is not driven by fear of loss, but guided by clarity of purpose. One that does not confuse intensity with importance. One that values consistency over drama. That version of you requires a different environment, both internally and externally. God is not just preparing blessings, He is preparing context. Relationships, timing, opportunities, and even delays are being arranged to match who you are becoming, not who you were. You may also feel moments of grief surfacing unexpectedly, not because something bad is happening, but because something old is finally being released. Grief is not always about loss. Sometimes it is about transition. You are saying goodbye to versions of yourself that carried you through hard seasons. Honor them. They were necessary, but they are not meant to lead you forward. Preparation includes closure, even when no dramatic ending occurs. As belief reactivates, discernment sharpens. You become less impressed by surface-level promises and more attentive to substance. You start recognizing alignment by how safe it feels, not how exciting it looks. You begin to understand that what is meant for you will not require constant anxiety to maintain. That realization alone changes how you approach the future. The atmosphere shift also affects how you interpret time. You stop feeling like you are racing against an invisible clock. You stop measuring your life against milestones that were never designed for your path. Time becomes less of an enemy and more of a collaborator. You realize that arriving later with stability is better than arriving early with chaos. That understanding is not resignation, it is wisdom. Chosen one, what is happening right now is subtle, but it is not small. Invisible preparation is often the most critical phase because it determines whether what comes next will bless you or burden you. God is intentional about this stage because He knows that unmanaged acceleration can destroy what took years to form. So He slows the outer world while He strengthens the inner one. You are being taught how to hold what you are about to receive, not just materially, but emotionally and spiritually. How to stay grounded when things improve, how to remain humble without shrinking, how to enjoy abundance without guilt, how to accept support without fear of dependence. These are not lessons you learn overnight. They are integrated quietly through atmosphere shifts like the one you are in now. This is why forcing clarity right now would be counterproductive. You are not meant to see everything yet. You are meant to stabilize, to listen, to notice what feels lighter and what feels heavy, to trust the subtle cues instead of demanding dramatic signs. God does not need to prove Himself to you. He is restoring your ability to recognize Him. So if you feel like something has already changed, even though nothing has changed, trust that. That awareness is not premature. It is preparatory. You are sensing the shift because you are meant to participate in it consciously, not be dragged into it reactively. This message is part of that participation. Chosen one. Invisible preparation is still preparation. Atmosphere shifts are still movement. Belief reactivation is still power. And when the outer world finally catches up to what has already been arranged, you will realize that this quiet season was not empty at all. It was the moment everything began to align. Chosen one. It is time to correct a misunderstanding that has quietly shaped how you interpret your past. The resistance you encountered was never proof that you were on the wrong path. The sabotage, the delays, the discouragement, the sudden closures, the moments where things unraveled just as you thought you were getting traction. None of that was evidence of failure. It was evidence of weight. Only assignments with consequence attract opposition with strategy. What was meant to build you had to be challenged, because what you carry was never small enough to move through life unnoticed. Think back to how often progress seemed to trigger resistance rather than ease. Each time you stepped closer to alignment, something pushed back. Relationships shifted, support weakened, confidence was tested, resources thinned. You attempted to interpret that pattern as a sign to retreat, to settle, to quiet yourself. But opposition does not show up to stop what is insignificant. It shows up to slow what is inevitable. If your calling were fragile, it would not have needed interference. The very fact that resistance met you repeatedly is confirmation that your path mattered enough to confront. Discouragement was one of the most effective tools used against you because it works internally. You did not just face external barriers. You were pressured to doubt yourself, to question your discernment, to reinterpret your gifts as liabilities. You were nudged toward the belief that consistency was stubbornness and hope was naivety. But even in that season, God was not reacting to the interference. He was already ahead of it. Nothing that surprised you surprised him. No plan meant to limit you was formed without being accounted for first. While you were trying to recover from disappointment, divine provision was being staged. While you were questioning whether you had misheard direction, God was rerouting consequences. You may have felt like you were falling behind, but heaven was not keeping the same scorecard. What looked like loss was often containment. What looked like defeat was often delay, designed to protect you from exposure before readiness. God does not allow his purposes to be cancelled by human interference or spiritual resistance. He absorbs it, repurposes it, and uses it to strengthen what comes next. Human doubt tends to fixate on visible setbacks. Divine provision operates on invisible continuity. Doubt asks, "Why isn't this working yet?" Provision answers by working beyond your line of sight. Doubt interprets delay as denial. Provision treats delay as investment time. You are never being drained without return. You are depositing endurance, obedience, integrity, and faith into a spiritual account that does not depreciate with time. That account has been accumulating unseen credit. Every time you chose integrity when compromise would have brought faster results. Every time you stayed kind when bitterness would have been justified. Every time you waited instead of forcing outcomes. Every time you trusted God in silence rather than demanding immediate answers. None of that was wasted. It was recorded. It built equity. Spiritual economies do not reward shortcuts. They reward alignment. Opposition tried to convince you that you were behind schedule. In reality, you were being fortified. The weight you are meant to carry requires a strength that cannot be developed in ease alone. Pressure reveals structure. Resistance exposes weaknesses so they can be strengthened before responsibility increases. God did not remove opposition immediately because it was refining you, not defeating you. There were moments you wondered if you were simply unlucky, if life seemed harder for you than for others.
But difficulty is not evenly distributed because calling is not evenly assigned. Some paths require deeper preparation because they lead to broader influence. Some lives are shaped through friction because smoothness would never produce the necessary resilience. You were not singled out for struggle. You were selected for capacity. Even the sabotage that felt personal was often impersonal. People moved from their own limitations, fears, and insecurities. Systems resisted what they could not categorize or control. But none of that had authority over your destiny. Authority belongs to the one who authored it. God was never in catch-up mode, trying to repair damage. He was building redundancy into your story so that no single setback could permanently derail you. Now you are beginning to see the contrast. Human doubt kept asking you to shrink, to play safe, to stop expecting so much. Divine provision kept expanding you quietly, stretching your ability to endure, to discern, to remain steady under pressure.
One voice tried to convince you that you were losing ground. The other ensured that you were gaining depth. This is where the narrative changes. Opposition does not get the final word. It never did. What it was allowed to do was reveal the seriousness of your assignment. It exposed how much resistance your obedience could attract. And now, as provision begins to surface, you will understand why things unfolded the way they did. Not everything that blocked you was meant to be fought. Some things were meant to slow you down so you could outlast what would have destroyed a less prepared version of you. Chosen one, your account is not empty, it is full, filled with unseen credit accumulated through seasons when it looked like nothing was happening. And now, as movement accelerates, you will find that provision arrives with a depth and stability that opposition could never undermine. What was meant to limit you has already been absorbed into the very foundation that will support what comes next. Chosen one, understand this clearly. Divine funding does not operate by the rules you were taught to survive under. It does not answer to market conditions, public approval, visible credentials, or timing that makes sense on paper. Worldly currency measures worth by appearance, how polished you look, how loud your voice is, how fast your results come. Divine funding measures worth by alignment. It responds to obedience when no one is watching, endurance when quitting would be reasonable, and integrity when compromise would be rewarded. That is why there were seasons where you did everything right and still saw no immediate return. Heaven was not ignoring you, it was calculating differently. Worldly systems fund potential based on proof. Divine systems fund purpose based on promise. The world asks, "What do you have already?" God asks, "What are you faithful with?" The world rewards speed. God rewards steadiness. The world values visibility. God values readiness. This is why divine provision often confuses observers. It shows up without obvious explanation, because it was never tied to surface metrics in the first place. What qualified you was not what people could see. It was what you carried quietly and consistently. This funding is not a small relief designed to get you through another month. It is not a temporary patch to ease pressure before returning you to survival mode. What is being released now is a full turnaround, a structural shift, a reordering of how your life is supported. God is not interested in keeping you barely afloat. He is repositioning you so you can build without constant strain, give without depletion, and move without fear of collapse. Survival-level assistance keeps you dependent. Legacy-level provision makes you responsible. Legacy-level provision thinks beyond bills and emergencies. It considers impact, sustainability, and continuity. It asks, what will outlive you? What will shift patterns beyond your lifetime? What will bless people you may never meet? That is why the preparation took so long. God does not fund legacies impulsively. He builds the vessel before releasing the weight. You are not being resourced for comfort alone. You are being resourced for influence, for stewardship, for assignments that require stability rather than adrenaline. Notice the difference in tone. Worldly help often comes with anxiety attached, fear of losing it, pressure to perform, obligation to impress. Divine funding comes with peace. It does not rush you. It grounds you. It removes the desperation from your decisions. When God upgrades a life, He does not just add resources. He upgrades capacity. Your thinking expands. Your nervous system calms. Your priorities clarify. You stop chasing what drains you and start building what lasts. This is not God fixing isolated problems one by one. This is God upgrading the operating system of your life. The old version required constant effort just to maintain balance. The new version is designed for flow, alignment, and multiplication. Where you once had to push doors open, you'll now recognize which doors are already unlocked. Where you once tolerated instability, you will now require peace as confirmation. That is part of the upgrade. Do not underestimate what is happening because it may arrive quietly at first. Divine funding often begins as stability before it becomes abundance, as clarity before it becomes expansion, as rest before it becomes acceleration. God is not impressed by spectacle. He is committed to sustainability. He is not patching holes in your story. He is rebuilding the foundation, so what comes next does not crumble under its own weight. Chosen one. This is the difference between being helped and being established. Help rescues you from drowning. Establishment gives you ground to stand on. What is unfolding now is not about keeping you alive through another hard season. It is about positioning you to live, build, and leave something behind that reflects divine intention. This is not worldly currency at work. This is divine funding, and it upgrades everything it touches. Chosen one. The delays you endured were never punishments for weakness. They were refinements for strength. Scarcity was not evidence that you were failing. It was evidence that you were being shaped. Financial strain, limitation, the constant need to stretch what little you had, none of it was random, and none of it was meant to break you. It was meant to expand you. God was not withholding to teach you a lesson. He was preparing you to carry something heavier without collapsing under its weight. Every season where resources felt tight forced you to develop discernment. You learned how to prioritize, how to wait, how to hear direction instead of reacting to pressure. You learned the difference between need and desire, between urgency and alignment. Those lessons were not small. They built maturity that money alone could never teach. If abundance had arrived too early, it would have exposed gaps in structure that now no longer exist. What looked like limitation was actually reinforcement. Scarcity trained your endurance. It taught you how to keep moving forward without immediate reward, how to remain faithful when outcomes were uncertain, how to trust provision without seeing it first. That kind of endurance cannot be rushed. It has to be lived into the body and the mind. God was strengthening your internal framework so that when provision arrived, it would not destabilize you or redefine you. You were being trained to hold, not just to receive. This is why the delay was not cruel, it was precise. Weak vessels crack under pressure. Prepared vessels expand. You were never weak, but there were parts of you that still needed strengthening. Old beliefs had to fall away. Survival instincts had to be softened. Fear-based decision-making had to be replaced with clarity. The delay created space for that transformation. It removed the rush so you could become steady. Now comes the shift. Divine acceleration does not contradict delay. It completes it. Time begins to compress, not because God suddenly moves faster, but because the preparation phase has finished. When capacity matches calling, movement accelerates naturally. What once took years because you were learning through resistance can now take weeks because you are moving through alignment. Effort decreases while effectiveness increases. This is not magic. It is readiness meeting opportunity. You may notice that things resolve more quickly now. Conversations that used to drag on reach clarity fast. Opportunities appear with less friction. Solutions come with fewer steps. This is not coincidence. It is the result of compounded growth finally being activated. Everything you learned in slow seasons is now being applied at speed. Divine acceleration is not chaotic. It is efficient. It feels like momentum without panic.
Understand this clearly. God did not delay you because you were incapable. He delayed you because you were becoming capable. Preparation was never about punishment. It was about durability. And now that durability allows for speed. The same pressure that once slowed you down would now only sharpen you. That is how you know the season has changed. Chosen one, honor the delay for what it produced. Do not resent the years that felt heavy or unfair. They built the strength that now allows time to bend in your favor. What once required struggle will now respond to alignment. What once demanded persistence will now yield to clarity. The delay did its work. Now, acceleration begins. Chosen one, as this acceleration unfolds, it is important that you do not misinterpret the sudden movement as pressure to perform. Divine acceleration is not the same as human urgency. Human urgency rushes because it is afraid of loss. Divine acceleration moves quickly because loss is no longer a factor. What is meant for you cannot miss you now. That is why you are allowed to breathe even as things speed up. The calm you feel beneath the momentum is not laziness or hesitation. It is confirmation that you are no longer operating from survival instincts. There was a time when every decision felt heavy because one wrong move seemed like it could cost you everything. That weight trained you to be careful, to be thoughtful, to listen deeply before acting. Now, those same qualities allow you to move faster without recklessness. You are not guessing anymore. You are recognizing. You are not forcing outcomes anymore. You are responding to openings. This is what happens when preparation meets provision. The path does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes clear. Think about how many times you were protected by what felt like disappointment. Opportunities that fell through, relationships that dissolved, plans that stalled. Each one spared you from building on unstable ground.
At the time, it felt like you were losing momentum. In truth, you were being kept from attaching your future to structures that could not support it. God was not slowing you down to frustrate you. He was preserving you for what would last. Now, as time compresses, you may feel a strange contrast. Movement without chaos. Progress without exhaustion. This is because you are no longer trying to prove yourself. The need to convince, to justify, to over-explain has faded. Divine acceleration does not require persuasion. It carries its own authority. Doors open because they are aligned, not because you pushed hard enough. People respond because timing is right, not because you impressed them. It is also important to understand that acceleration does not erase responsibility. It deepens it. What comes faster must be stewarded with wisdom. That is why your character was refined first. Speed without maturity destroys. Speed with maturity multiplies. God waited until your inner world could sustain outer expansion. You are now capable of holding growth without losing yourself in it.
There will be moments when you look back and realize that entire chapters resolved themselves quietly. Issues that once consumed your thoughts no longer have power over you. Needs that once defined your prayers are no longer central. This is not because you stopped caring. It is because provision has replaced pressure. When God moves you out of survival mode, your nervous system resets. You stop bracing for impact and start building with intention. You may also notice that your relationship with time itself is changing. You are less anxious about timelines, less reactive to delays, less threatened by other people's pace. This is a sign of trust restored. You are no longer racing against fear. You are walking with confidence. Divine acceleration does not feel like running out of breath. It feels like finally matching the rhythm you were designed for. Do not be surprised if some people cannot keep up with this shift. Not everyone who walked with you in the slow seasons is meant to move with you in acceleration. This is not rejection. It is alignment. Some connections were built for endurance training, not for expansion. Honor what they contributed, but do not shrink to maintain familiarity. Growth requires space. As provision increases, remember that God is not only funding outcomes, He is funding your peace. If something demands constant anxiety, constant striving, constant self-betrayal, it is not part of this upgrade. Divine acceleration simplifies rather than complicates. It removes unnecessary battles. It clarifies priorities. It brings focus instead of fragmentation. There may still be challenges ahead, but they will feel different. You will face them from a position of stability rather than desperation, from wisdom rather than impulse, from trust rather than fear. This is the evidence that refinement has done its work. You are no longer fighting to survive. You are learning how to steward increase. Chosen one, let yourself receive this season without guilt. You did not arrive here by accident or entitlement. You arrived here by endurance, by obedience, by choosing alignment when shortcuts were available. The years that felt slow were not wasted. They were loading the foundation. Now the structure can rise quickly without collapsing. What took years before required you to become someone new? What takes weeks now is built on who you already are. That is the power of refinement. It changes you so thoroughly that progress no longer has to fight through resistance. It flows through readiness. Stay present. Stay grounded. Stay attentive. Acceleration does not mean abandoning discernment. It means applying it in real time. Trust the pace. Trust the calm. Trust the clarity. You are not behind. You are not late. You are right where preparation meets promise. This is not the reward for suffering. This is the result of becoming. And now, as divine acceleration carries you forward, remember this truth. Nothing was taken from you that was not replaced with something stronger. Nothing was delayed that was not protected. Nothing was refined that will not now be released. You are not stepping into a fragile future. You are stepping into one that has been tested, strengthened, and secured. The season of proving is complete. The season of building has begun. Chosen one, it is time to release the narrow definition of funding that limits provision to money alone. Finances matter, yes, but they are only one expression of a much larger economy. True provision is holistic. God does not fund you in fragments. He funds you as a whole being. That is why, before external resources shift, internal conditions begin to change. Clarity returns, peace settles, confusion lifts. These are not side effects, they are the foundation. Without them, money would only amplify chaos. With them,
everything else finds its proper place. Mental clarity is one of the first signs that provision has begun. When you leave survival mode, your thoughts slow down. You stop scanning for threats and start recognizing patterns. Your mind is no longer consumed by, "How do I get through this?" but opens to, "What am I meant to build?" That shift alone is funding. A clear mind can create more than endless hustle ever could. Peace sharpens perception. It allows you to see opportunities that anxiety kept hidden. Peace is not passive, it is functional. It stabilizes you so that you can make decisions without fear contaminating your judgment. When God funds peace, He is protecting your future choices. You are no longer pressured into saying yes out of scarcity or staying in situations out of fear. You move from reaction to intention. That is provision at work, even before a single external change is visible. Ideas are another form of divine currency. You may notice thoughts arriving with unusual clarity, solutions, concepts, creative directions that feel both exciting and grounded. These are not random sparks, they are resources. In a divine economy, ideas often precede income. Vision precedes infrastructure. God funds the blueprint before He funds the building. If you steward the idea with faith and discipline, the resources to support it will follow. Connections, too, are provision. The right conversation at the right moment can shift an entire trajectory. The arrival of a mentor, a collaborator, a supporter who understands your language and your values, these are not coincidences. They are placements. God positions people the same way He positions opportunities. When provision is holistic, you stop feeling like you have to convince or chase. Alignment draws what belongs to you. Leaving survival mode restores your ability to dream. For a long time, dreaming felt risky. Hope felt expensive. You learned to lower expectations to protect yourself from disappointment. That was understandable in a season of strain, but it was never meant to be permanent. When provision arrives, dreaming returns naturally, not as escapism, but as vision. You begin to imagine futures that feel possible, not just desirable. That is not indulgence. That is assignment awakening. Your dreams are not distractions from reality. They are invitations into purpose. Divine assignments often begin as quiet longings, ideas that persist, visions that won't leave you alone. A sense that you are meant for something specific, even if you cannot yet name it. God does not tease with desire. He plants it with intention. When provision expands, it is because the assignment is ready to move from concept to expression. Wholeness is the goal, not excess. God's provision aims to integrate your inner and outer worlds so they no longer fight each other. Your values align with your actions. Your energy matches your calling. Your resources support your purpose rather than pulling you away from it. This is why funding beyond money is so powerful. It stabilizes every layer of your life simultaneously. Chosen one, recognize the fullness of what is being given to you. Do not dismiss peace because it does not look impressive. Do not overlook clarity because it feels subtle. Do not minimize ideas because they are still unformed. These are the currencies of a higher system. They are signs that survival mode has ended and stewardship has begun. Provision is not just about having more. It is about being whole. And wholeness is what allows everything else to multiply without costing you your soul. Chosen one, the season where you felt invisible was never abandonment. It was concealment. You were hidden, not forgotten. There is a difference, and it matters now more than ever. Forgotten things decay. Hidden things are preserved. While you were out of sight, you were being protected from premature exposure, from voices that would have misunderstood you, from pressures that would have shaped you incorrectly. Silence was not neglect. It was development. In the quiet, your foundations were laid. Away from applause and interference, you were allowed to become without performance. You learned who you were when no one was affirming you, when progress was internal rather than visible. That kind of formation cannot happen on a stage. It happens in obscurity, where motives are purified and identity is anchored beyond external validation. God was not ignoring you in those moments. He was investing in you. Now, the shift is happening. What was formed in silence is being positioned in visibility. Not all at once, not recklessly, but intentionally. God is revealing your value in environments that can recognize it and support it. Positioning is not about being seen everywhere. It is about being seen in the right places. You are not stepping into attention for attention's sake.
You are stepping into alignment where your presence makes sense. This rise is not fueled by revenge or the need to prove anything to anyone. It is not about showing people what they missed. It is about fulfilling what was assigned. When God elevates, He does not do it to embarrass others. He does it to establish purpose. Your growth is not a response to rejection. It is a response to readiness. You are not rising because you were wronged. You are rising because you are prepared. You may notice that the desire to explain yourself is fading, the need to justify your journey, to recount every struggle, to demand recognition. Those impulses lose their grip when identity settles. Positioning brings peace. You no longer need to be understood by everyone. You only need to be obedient where you are placed. That confidence is part of the reveal. As this shift becomes visible, some will be surprised. They did not see the work happening underground. They did not witness the nights of growth, the quiet choices, the internal battles won without witnesses. But that surprise is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to remain grounded in why you were hidden in the first place. Protection came before promotion for a reason. You are becoming proof of divine faithfulness, not because your life is flawless, but because it is coherent. The pieces align. The timing makes sense in hindsight. The growth is sustainable. People will recognize that what is happening to you cannot be explained by luck or trend. It carries the weight of intention. Chosen one, stand in this identity shift without shrinking or overcompensating. You are not emerging to compete. You are emerging to contribute. The silence shaped you. The hiding preserved you. And now the positioning will allow you to serve in ways that reflect the faithfulness that carried you through unseen seasons. Chosen one, acceleration does not come with full explanations. It rarely arrives with a neatly organized map or a step-by-step breakdown that satisfies logic before movement is required. That is intentional. If everything made sense in advance, obedience would not be obedience. It would be agreement. Divine funding is released in response to movement, not certainty. This is why you are being asked to trust before you are comfortable, to move before you feel fully ready, to say yes while parts of you are still catching up. There will be moments in this season where the direction feels unfamiliar, even disruptive. Opportunities may pull you out of routines that once kept you grounded. Invitations may stretch your identity beyond what you have publicly claimed. Your mind will want to pause until everything feels stable. But your spirit already recognizes the timing. This tension is not confusion. It is the edge of expansion. God does not wait for comfort to appear before He acts. He invites you to move so comfort can be redefined. Courageous movement is the currency that activates provision. Provision follows alignment, not hesitation. Throughout your journey, you may notice a pattern. The moment you step forward in obedience, something else shifts to support you. Resources align, people respond, Doors open that were previously closed. This is not coincidence. It is design. Called people are resourced when they move, not when they wait for proof. Faith is not rewarded because it feels safe. It is rewarded because it trusts the source. Saying yes before comfort appears is not recklessness. It is recognition. You are recognizing that the one who called you is responsible for what he initiated. You are not carrying this alone. You are not expected to manufacture outcomes. Your role is responsiveness. God handles the infrastructure. When you move in obedience, you step into a flow that was already prepared ahead of you. You may feel exposed at times, like you are stepping into spaces that highlight what you have not mastered yet. That vulnerability is part of the design. It keeps you dependent on guidance rather than ego. It ensures that growth remains collaborative between you and the divine. Acceleration without humility hardens the heart. Acceleration with surrender sharpens discernment. Understand this clearly. You are not just following the path, you are becoming the blueprint. Others will look at your journey and find confirmation that obedience works, even when logic lags behind. Your life becomes a reference point, a living sign that provision follows alignment. You are not meant to blend in during this season. You are meant to demonstrate what happens when courage overrides comfort. This is why the fear you feel cannot stop you. Fear is information, not instruction. It tells you that you are stepping beyond what is familiar. It does not get to decide what is next. Obedience listens to a deeper voice. It responds to calling rather than circumstance. Chosen one, move when you are nudged. Speak when prompted. Release what is being loosened from your hands. Step into what is being placed before you. You are not being reckless. You are being revealed. Your willingness to move without full clarity is the very evidence that marks you as the sign.